Hello, everyone, and welcome back. It is from Sans College Football Game Day Show. We are back here for Week 13. It is the Thanksgiving Day Show, Thanksgiving week. We are very thankful, and we have some Thanksgiving-themed segments, as we do every year for the holiday season. We'll jump right into the weekly recap of Week 12, so we can get into this holiday show here. It is, of course, Andy Hybrid and Tom Scavetta. Again, to my left and right. Andy, I'll start with you. Jumped into the recap here. Tell us what you're watching Week 12. What stood out to you?
My team played chicken shit fucking football in the second half and played not to lose. That happened to me on Saturday and Sunday with Illinois and the Bears. I know this is not an NFL show. But yeah, I mean, 15-13 final. Iowa ends up getting the win. And it just felt like a win. They didn't deserve it all. Their offense is just fucking maddening to watch. And the fact that our defense let them stay in it, our offense just stopped, really doing what was working in the first half and the second half, really got conservative. And just didn't get the win. Haven't won at Kinnick since 1999. Now I believe we don't play there again until 2028 with the new weird Big Ten scheduling. So by then it'll be even longer since we've won in Iowa. That was the big one for me. It's always the big one for me each week. So hopefully they go out and beat Northwestern on Saturday and get to 6-6 and salvage something out of this season. How about Maryland hanging around with Michigan? 31-24 the final there. Terps really gave Michigan all they could handle. Clemson getting the win 31-20 over North Carolina. And Kansas State, a close one over Kansas 31-27 in Lawrence. And Florida giving Missouri all they could handle, a 33-31 final there. And then the last one I was watching was Washington eking out that win over Oregon State 22-20. I picked Oregon State on the show, faded myself, and took Washington money line right before the game, and it ended up working out for me.
I love it. That seems to be the go-to play with the way that we've been betting. Just fade yourself, and you might be good. Yeah, Tom, tell me what you were watching. What stood out to you?
Notre Dame blowing out Wake Forest on Senior Day, 45-7. Now, people might say, "Oh, Notre Dame fan talking about a Notre Dame game." Sure, but this game had more meaning than that. Sam Hartman threw 4 touchdown passes and 277 passing yards against his old football team. Remember, Sam Hartman was with Wake Forest for 5 seasons, guys. They blew them out, and Hartman looked perfect. Notre Dame also signing a contract extension with NBC through the 2029 season. Partnership dates back to 1991, is the longest contract in the NCAA. Independent to stay for the Irish for now. How about Georgia dominating 38-10 on the road against Tennessee? Obviously, they leapfrogged Ohio State to number 1 in the CFP last week. Carson Beck with 3 touchdown passes. Look out for him for Heisman next year. Ukulele is still Ukulele. He stinks. He threw 2 picks in a big game. Shocker. And then Bo Nix, man. Bo Nix. Man. Dan Lanning is something special as a head coach. Bo Nix threw 6 touchdown passes for 404 yards. If Oregon beats Washington in the Pac-12 title game, Bo Nix is the Heisman frontrunner. He is. I mean, if he beats Penix head-to-head, what he couldn't do his first time up, the winner of the Pac-12 title game will win the Heisman Trophy. The quarterback that wins that game will win the Heisman. That's what it's going to come down to, guys. As crazy as that sounds, that's what stood out to me in Week 12.
Yeah, pretty much covered all the games. I mean, there was a lot of good games, but those are, I think, all the notables. So what I'm going to do is just give a fun fact. We talked about Jimbo last week, the little buyout that they had going on. I did a little napkin math. This was not something I read. I actually did this one myself. CFB fun fact of the day: with the money that Texas A&M spent on Jimbo Fisher's buyout, $77.6 million, for those who forgot, they could have instead bought every single fan in attendance. That is a 102,733 capacity at Kyle Field. Their signature treat, the Aggie Dog, for the next 189 straight games. So if you are counting, that is 7 home games per year. That is 27 straight years of Aggie Dogs, over 19 million Aggie Dogs they could have served to the fans for free. Instead, they spent it on a coach to not coach. So there you go. That is the world of college football coaching buyouts there. I don't know. If I'm a Texas A&M fan, I think maybe I'd take the hot dogs if I'm a season ticket holder. But that is going to wrap up our recap and bring us into the first theme segment here for Thanksgiving. It is Black Friday sale. Black Friday, very well known for the fight over the deals. Places slash those prices as high as they can. So what we're going to do here is pick 2 each of our biggest CFB disappointments on the season. It can be players, coaches, fan bases, whatever you want. That would be on sale, on a fire sale, probably at this point, because of their poor performance, unexpected or not. Andy, I'll start with you. Give us your Black Friday sales here.
The first one is Kent State, Maction, baby. I say this because they are 1-10 on the year. I believe they are the only team in college football with one win, which feels weird to say because I think literally everybody else has two. They're 0-7 in conference play. They have not won since week 3 against FCS opponents Central Connecticut State. So a couple of their losses on the year: Brian's UCF Knights 56-6, Fresno State 53-10, Ohio 42-17, Bowling Green 49-19, and last week Ball State beat them 34-3. So just very, very bad year for the Kent State Golden Flashes, who by no means are some powerhouse program. Like, don't get me wrong, but being the only one-win team in all of Division I is never something that you want to be. And then secondly, I'm going with the Arkansas Razorbacks, boys. This is a team I felt like we hyped up a bunch last year, and they have just completely fallen off a cliff. They are sitting at 4-7 on the year and staring number 10 Missouri in the face this week, actually playing on Friday, Black Friday. Can get it, ties into the segment. Good on me. Yeah, it just doesn't really make sense. I mean, their defense has been pretty bad, but you think when you bring back a guy like KJ Jefferson, you feel pretty good about your team. I know obviously there's a lot more guys than just the quarterback that are important, but I don't know, just a complete disappointment for Sam Pittman and the Hogs this year, who I believe will be 4-8, which is not something I would have guessed at the start of the year. I mean, shit, guys, Auburn beat this team 48-10. Like, you feel great about your win over FIU last week. I hope you guys do. But yeah, those are my two my Black Friday sales there, because it's maybe Sam Pittman needs to go. I mean, he does have a great rack, but yeah, those are my two.
Yeah, I will say in our defense, I think they were worth the hype last year. I don't know what's happened this year. Tom, give us your Black Friday sales.
The first one is USC, the University of Southern California. I wouldn't blame you if you forgot about them at this point. They've lost 5 out of their last 6 games. Their only win was a 1-point win over California. Caleb Williams has not only lost Heisman consideration, but he has lost out on being the number 1 overall pick in this year's draft. He refused to speak to the media following the UCLA loss. Or ever again against USC, bust material. USC is bad. Lincoln Riley probably won't be there long term because he'll probably take another coaching job. They're going to be mid next year, the year after that. They're really bad. I'm selling on them. There's so many teams better than them, and they really underperformed this season. This was a team that was hyped up to potentially make the college football playoff. Next up, this is a guy we've bashed for a very, very long time on this show, especially after their, 9 overtime loss to Illinois a couple years back. James Franklin. Ever since he saw ghosts a couple years ago around Halloween time, this Penn State team has been atrocious. I mean, in fact, they've been bad since he's taken over in big games. The team looked dry and unprepared against Ohio State. He is 4-16 combined against Ohio State and Michigan. Get this, guys. Since the 2016 Big Ten championship game, Penn State is 1-12 against top 10 teams. James Franklin was not hired or extended, for that matter, to go 1-12 against top 10 teams. Things do happen in threes, fellas. Jimbo Fisher went. Dino Babers went from Syracuse, which I predicted preseason, by the way, on our very first show. And now, could James Franklin be next? Could he be next, despite his 10-year extension? Don't get me wrong. They're beating everybody they should beat. But who do they play besides Ohio State and Michigan? You have to at least look competent against those teams. And they don't.
Yeah, I like them all so far. My first one here, I didn't really know what to do with the graph for this one, so I'm leaving it blank. But it is a fire sale on healthy quarterbacks. Yeah, I mean, this is maybe the worst couple weeks for top 10 teams. I know I'm not going to put Florida in the top 10 here, but they are, a part of a big game this weekend. They lose Graham Mertz to a dislocated shoulder. They said that he might not need surgery, but his season is certainly done. Jordan Travis had a clean break, but his career at FSU is all but over now. I don't see him. I don't even know if he could medical redshirt. I don't think he would want to.
No, he announced that his college
Yeah,
career is over.
yeah. So I mean, just absolute tragedy there. Dylan Gabriel, my ex-boy from UCF, I believe he's just in. They're not saying much, so I don't know. Um, but I'm hoping it's just concussion protocol. But they're only saying head injury, which is a little bit odd to me. Because usually they'll just say concussion protocol since that's such a common thing nowadays with CTE. They'll just straight up announce it. So I mean I hope he's okay. But that's two top 10. I don't know if OU can slide into the playoffs or not at this point. But you lose two top 10 QBs. Another QB in Mertz, who is going into a huge matchup, huge rivalry at home in the Swamp this week against FSU. They're trying to ruin some dreams. So it was just not a good week here, for these top quarterbacks in CFB. And then my second one here, you went with USC, Tom. I'm also going with a USC-based pick here. I'm picking Alex Grinch. This is not even a fire sale at this point. The company has just completely discontinued production of Alex Grinch. Fired all the assembly workers, shut the plant down. He is the defensive coordinator who did not know how to coordinate a defense. This is 2 teams in a row. I mean, you can't really blame the fact that he's in offensive powerhouse conferences. Like, I understand, both conferences, the Pac-12 and the Big 12, you score a lot of points. Defense isn't really, the thing that's focused on the most in those 2 conferences. But he's been worse than average in both of those. So he sort of failed upwards from Oklahoma to USC. Failed again there, and now he's in limbo. I don't know, who's going to hire him. I see him maybe at the bottom of the table, P5, or maybe taking a coaching job higher up at a G5 at this point, because I don't know who would want to hire him as a DC at this point. Probably no one, I think. That'll wrap up our first Halloween. Where am I? Back in October. Thanksgiving segment here. Move us into our second. It is giving thanks. We're going to pick 2 or 3. Again, players, coaches, teams, whatever you want, and what they are thankful for this season. Tom, we'll start with you on this one. We've got our nice little AI-generated graphic here. Some players from many different teams coming together over a nice juicy turkey. Tell us who you got and what they're thankful for this CFB season.
Let's start with Bo Nix, right? We just talked about him a little bit earlier. He is so thankful for Dan Lanning. He has helped Bo Nix turn his college career around. Guys, he has come such a long way. When we first started doing this together, the 3 of us, around 3 years ago, we were knocking Bo Nix, man. He was at Auburn. He was doing really bad, and he may just win the Heisman now. That's my first one, giving thanks to Dan Lanning, an outstanding head coach. Don't get me wrong, Nix deserves a lot of credit, but what Lanning has done to build a competent team around a quarterback, going out and getting Bo Nix, phenomenal stuff. Next up, I think Arizona is very thankful for their new quarterback, Noah Fifita, just a 5'11 freshman who has earned himself a starting quarterback job for next season, in my opinion. The Wildcats have ripped 5 straight wins, 4 of them against ranked teams. And finally, my satirical one. I want to go back to week 5. Remember Notre Dame was playing this team, this little brother style team in red and silver. They have a head coach who likes to talk a lot of trash, right? I think Ryan Day should be very thankful for Connor Stallions. And yes, we're going there. We're going back to this because Ryan Day knows he has 0 chance of beating Jim Harbaugh head to head this season. It is not happening. Now Ryan Day has a chance because Harbaugh's off the sidelines. Once again, Ryan Day should be very thankful for the presence of Connor Stallions.
All right, that is quite the twist there, bringing Stallions into our Thanksgiving dinner here. Andy, give us your picks and what they're thankful for.
Yeah, so my first one is New Mexico State. We have not given them enough love on the show this year. Hand up. I'm not talked enough about the Aggies. They're 9-3. They just beat Auburn 31-10 in Auburn. So I am saying New Mexico State fans and head coach Jerry Kill should be very thankful for their starting quarterback, Diego Pavia. He is electric, ladies and gentlemen. He's a junior. He's from Albuquerque. 2,458 yards, 22 touchdowns, 6 interceptions on the year, completing 60% of his passes, averaging 8.4 yards per attempt. And he's also the Aggies' leading rusher, 134 carries for 738 yards, averaging 5.5 yards a carry and 5 touchdowns. He is electric. Highly recommend tuning in to a New Mexico State football game if you have the chance simply just to watch this kid, because he has just been putting on an absolute show this year. So Aggie fans, Jerry Kill, your head coach, you should be very thankful for this guy. I just have 2. So my last one, Iowa Hawkeye fans, you should be very thankful that you have a defense that is worth a shit, that is competent at all, because there's no way you should be 9-2. There's just absolutely no fucking way. I cannot wait to see you get your ass whipped in the Big Ten championship game, because whoever it is, whether it's Ohio State, whether it's Michigan, you're going to lose by 30. Penn State beat you 31-0. But other than that, your defense has looked incredible. They're only giving up 292 yards a game, only 12.4 points per game. They make things ugly and they win their way. So that for that, I will tip my cap to you. There are not very many teams that can consistently win the type of games that the Iowa Hawkeyes win. Total for the Iowa-Nebraska game this weekend down to 26.5.
Yep.
We say it every week. If it hits, it'll be the lowest total ever, and it is always in an Iowa football game. So yeah, those are my 2 thankful whatever.
Yeah, it is. I think during, like, right after the end of your game against them, I basically just said it is just maddening to watch an Iowa football game and to play against them, because even though the offense is non-existent, it's just so hard to still beat just the defense. But yeah, I saw that total. I was eyeing it for our the parlay maybe, but I mean, at this point, Vegas is just like, hey, how low can we go with these over-unders? They're right. Sinking. But yeah, for me, my first one here, I have Washington. This is a little bit of a silver lining one, because you don't want to cheer for an injury, but they're very thankful for that Jordan Travis injury. They're on the outside looking in. They're maybe, in terms of resume, the best from number 3 to 5, and they're the lowest ranked of that grouping. So I think, it's going to be really hard if you're the committee to look at that Jordan Travis injury, see Rodemaker in there, and say, we trust them to be in the playoff. Obviously, they still have to play the game this week, the ACC championship as well. So maybe if he shows out, committee keeps him in. But I think this is, a godsend for Washington here, because this is a boost that they need to hop FSU potentially if both teams go undefeated. I mean, it could really come down to that injury in my eyes. So to me, I think Washington is very thankful that they caught a little bit of a break there with that injury. And secondly here, I think giving thanks is every college football fan in general. And what are they giving thanks for? That Colorado crashed and burned in year 1. Can you imagine how absolutely obnoxious it would have been if Colorado had made, say, like a New Year's Six Bowl with all the glitz and glamour and the ridiculous BS that they were pulling earlier in the season? They have been silenced. They're just losing every game left and right now. So absolute humble pie, very on brand. I'm sure there will be plenty of pies this week for Thanksgiving. So it's another one that Dion can shove down his throat. Maybe it'll stop him from talking up his team so much when they're not performing this upcoming week. That's it. That'll wrap up our Thanksgiving segments. Move us into our weekly regular, starting with the Parlay Party. Of course, the 2 requirements: minimum 4 picks, minimum plus 1,000 payout. Andy, we'll start with you. Run us through your picks.
Yes, I had Colorado on my parlay last week. And they were down 56-7 in the third quarter. I will say Shadur went down kind of early in that game, but even when he was in there, they were still down like 21-0 or 21-7 or something like that. So, yeah, dumpster fire in Colorado. But this week they are not on the card. I will be taking Tulane -3. They're hosting UTSA. UTSA has been very solid this year, but so is Tulane. I'll give them the field goal advantage here at home. Missouri -7.5 at Arkansas. I tried to adjust this one down to 6.5, but FanDuel did not have that as an option yet. I assume it's because it's Monday and we're recording a little early. Next, Ohio State +3.5 at Michigan. This one I know is a little dicey, but after Michigan's performance last week, kind of Maryland proved that they're beatable. And I think Ohio State is quite a better team than Maryland, so I like them to keep this game close. And then finally, this is another one I wanted to adjust by a point, but I was not able to. Alabama -14.5 at Auburn. Auburn coming off a 31-10 loss to New Mexico State. Just imagine what Jalen Milroe and the Tide are going to do to this Auburn defense. Milroe was a guy that I questioned. I think all of us kind of questioned him a little bit at the beginning of the season. And then, since getting benched, he has looked incredible. And good for him. Tommy Reese and him have got it going, have got the Tide offense rolling. I don't see any reason why they can't beat Auburn by 2 touchdowns. So 4 picks for me, plus 1228. Like I said, it's Monday when we're recording this. So this is all subject to change. Well, I guess it's always subject to change. So get it while you can or fade it. Pick the opposite of me. I would not blame you for that as well. $10 to win 128.
I love it. Yeah, I may have some similar picks on mine as well with some similar reasonings. Tom, you're up. Give us your picks.
Yeah. Can't say I'll have 2 on mine. They are on my banned betting list after they couldn't cover against East Carolina several weeks back. But I do think 3 might be safe. Anyway, my parlay here. So I have Oregon minus 10. I think they're going to have a very good week. I'm very excited for the Ducks to see how they do. They're going up against a decent team this week. Bo Nix, I'm very excited to see how he performs, improve his Heisman standing. We all know that Oregon State is a quality win for them on their resume. So they'll definitely jump to 5, I think, if they win. And Washington may jump into that 4 spot. So we'll see what happens there. That leg clocks in at minus 160. Next up, Michigan and Ohio State over 43.5. That clocks in at minus 168. I sold a couple points here. These teams both have good defenses, but both of these teams are also capable of putting up points, right? They have to score to win. So I think 43.5 points is a feasible option. If you want to fade that there, I don't know what to tell you. Anyway, UNC, NC State over 51.5. Brennan Armstrong is back, so I feel more comfortable picking the over here with this one. Brennan Armstrong against Drake May, 2 quarterbacks that love to sling it, 2 quarterbacks that can move as well, minus 173. LSU minus 10. I love LSU this week. They're going up against dumpster fire Texas A&M. Yes, they're 7-4, but they just fired Jimbo. Jaden Daniels might be entering Heisman consideration based off of numbers, 36 touchdowns, 4 picks. So there is potential there for him to finish in 3rd or 4th place. Minus 140, LSU at minus 10. Washington State. Unpopular opinion. I have the under in this one, even with Penix and Cam Ward at quarterback. Why? Last couple of years, the under has hit minus 148 on this one. And the under seems to be a theme this year, guys, in all football, not just college, professional as well. Final leg, my Fighting Irish minus 21. Final game of the season. They're playing against Stanford on the road. I sold 3 points here. This comes in at minus 193. So that's Oregon minus 10, LSU minus 10, Notre Dame minus 21, my 3 spreads. And then my 3 over-unders, Michigan, Ohio State over, UNC, NC State over, Washington State under. $10 for 178.39.
I like it. Going pretty big with that one. Move on to mine. I just got a right in between both of you guys with a 5-picker here. Andy, same reasoning as you for Missouri. I would say check out DraftKings because I found Missouri at minus 5.5. I checked it just before the show, so I don't know if it's moved a little bit. Like Andy said, we're filming on Monday this week because there is a little sneaky holiday this Thursday. But I have Missouri minus 5.5. I think I sold a few points there at Arkansas. Andy hit the nail on the head earlier. Arkansas has just been a mess this season. Missouri has looked really good, completely opposite from the Hogs. So I think they can beat them by a touchdown. Alabama, same thing, Andy. Check out DraftKings. Got it down to minus 12.5. 14. I looked at 14.5, the exact same thing. And I was like, can we slide them in there a little bit lower? So I got Alabama in there at minus 12.5 for minus 143. And then next, Georgia minus 18.5 against Georgia Tech. This one is surprisingly the one I hate the most here at 18.5 points. Georgia Tech isn't awful. And after watching Jordan Travis go down to a season-ending injury, I feel like Kirby Smart this could be a game where they just pull everyone super early. They'll be up, like 28 points. Then Georgia Tech scores some garbage time points and absolutely screws me here. But that one is minus 198. And I have Kansas minus 6 at Cincinnati. Yeah, they lost to Kansas State, but they still look like a really good team. Cincinnati has been one of the worst, certainly of the AAC teams to transfer over to the Big 12. So I think Kansas is a touchdown better. That is the regular line, so you get some good odds there. And then Clemson minus 6 at South Carolina. Clemson, kind of like Alabama. We didn't know where they stood early in the season, taking some losses, but South Carolina has done the same, except a little bit worse. Spencer Rattler hasn't looked terrible, but Clemson has sort of settled in here. Minus 6, so to beat them by a touchdown basically is what you're looking for. Those 5 come out to plus 1266, $10 to win $136.68 if you're counting pennies. That'll move us into the final segment. It is, of course, the Shots and Chasers, the games of the week, and there are some big ones, of course, because it is Thanksgiving. It is Rivalry Week. We start off with the biggest on the card. It is Michigan taking on Ohio State, number 2 versus number 3. Andy, we'll start with you on this one. Who do you think wins this battle of the Giants here?
I don't know. We're going to get a crying offensive coordinator in the post-game interview or on the sideline. Like, holy shit. That whole thing with Michigan. Oh, no, we didn't do it. Oh, okay, yeah, we did it. No, we didn't do it. Everybody else was trying to steal our signs. Okay, this is a punishment. We'll take it. We did it. Like, come on, get the fuck out of here. I actually think Ohio State has a chance to win this game, as crazy as that may sound. And as much shit I feel like I've talked about Ohio State this year. But, I think Kyle McCord has got better as the year has went on. I still don't think he's that great. But I'm also not that big of a J.J. McCarthy guy. I don't think he is anything that's unbeatable either. I think Michigan's going to try to keep this game simple. I think they're going to try to run the ball as much as possible, keep the pressure off J.J. McCarthy. If you're Ohio State, the plan is simple. See how many times we can get Gus Johnson to say Maserati Marv and force feed Marvin Harrison the ball. I think Michigan comes out with a very close win, but like my parlay, Ohio State covers the spread.
All right, Tom.
All right, so at the time of this, I believe it was -4 Michigan, right? Both teams 11-0. The loser likely out of the college football playoff unless that Jordan Travis injury keeps the loser in, despite not appearing in a conference title game. Should be very interesting. A lot can happen. But this is a must-win game for both teams if you want to make the CFP. The Buckeyes defense has not surrendered more than 17 points in any game this entire season. Also, the defense has not allowed a total of 6 points, over 6 points over the last 2 weeks. Kyle McCord has played much better, 2,900 passing yards. Travion Henderson, Chip Traynham as well, really good running the football. As Andy mentioned, Marvin Harrison Jr. is a weapon, but if he's not open, they have a good complementary tight end over the middle in Cade Stover. 5 touchdowns on the season. He is a vertical threat, a little undersized when it comes to blocking, but he is very vertical. I like what they got with Jordan Hancock and Josh Proctor on that back line there, going up against Roman Wilson and Cornelius Johnson. And then you must account for Tommy Eichenberg and Steele Chambers, who can make plays, filling those A and B gaps. Michigan, they've won each of the last 2 games by single digits. Only second-ranked opponent they've played all year in Ohio State. A win, and you're in the Big Ten title game against Iowa. A loss, you miss the Big Ten title game, and there's about a 50% chance you don't make the CFP at all. McCarthy, contrary to Andy here, I like J.J. McCarthy. I think he does what Michigan asks him to do, and he does his job very well. He's kind of like a coach's player, in my opinion. He hasn't had to throw the ball all that much over the past couple weeks. Same thing how, we've kind of faded Blake Corum a little bit this year. He's one of the best running backs in the nation, but he's only ran for 88 yards. But when you look at his touchdowns, he has 20 total touchdowns, right? And again, and they have a good time doing Colston Loveland, who is more of a blocker, but he's very capable of catching passes. Defensively, they have guys, Harrell and Stewart, off the edges. They'll challenge the Ohio State offensive line. Guys, the plot must thicken. Stallions, Harbaugh, Michigan. Michigan wins the game. It's 4. I think they win anywhere between 4 to 7. Wolverines.
Wow, for as much hate as you throw Michigan's way, and bringing up Stallions early in the show, coming out hot, I thought you were going to Ohio State for sure here. But yeah, a huge matchup here with this one. The interesting thing, this is the exact same ranking matchup we had last year in the same slot. When I was pulling up the show outline, I didn't even have to edit this game on the sheet because it was number 2 Ohio State versus number 3 Michigan yet again. So the stakes are just as big as last year. Obviously, historically, Ohio State has sort of owned the series, at least in recent years. But Michigan's on a 2-win streak here. They came away with the win last year. And, like I said, a whole year later, we're right back in the exact same spot looking at another massive game. But yeah, to me, I mean, I'm still on the fence on who I'm going to pick here, but I agree that, Michigan looks like they may actually be the better all-around team, which I don't think they were last year, and they still got the win. So what does that say about their matchup here with Ohio State this year? As far as the players go, yeah, I'm most interested in Kyle McCord here. He's been a bit of an unsung hero. But that's kind of how Stetson Bennett was last year with Georgia. All the talk has been around J.D. McCarthy on the other side here, but McCord, he's been chugging along, 22 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, 2,900 yards, which is 600 more than McCarthy, actually. So he's definitely been busy with this Ohio State offense. I guess it's easier to do when you have someone like Marvin Harrison Jr. on the team, but he's been no slouch throughout the season so far and just not as talked about as McCarthy. But yeah, in terms of matchups here, common top opponent, they both played Penn State. Ohio State beat them by 8. Michigan beat them by 9. So not much in it there. As far as players to watch, I got my 2 guys to watch for the Buckeyes. Cornerback Jordan Hancock, 1 sack, 4 pass deflections, 2 interceptions, and 2 forced fumbles. He's been all over the field for this defense. And defensive end Jack Sawyer as well, 2.5 sacks, 2 deflections, 2 forced fumbles to go with it on that defensive line. Michigan's secondary is the one thing that scares me here if you're going up against McCord, because they've got 14 interceptions. I didn't have time to see if that leads all of CFB or not, but that is a ton of interceptions, averaging more than 1.1 per game. So scary secondary, but yeah, I think I go the opposite. I know we're playing into the Stallions thing here, but it's not. I think it's no longer that okay. Harbaugh's not here. Let's dig in and fight to win this game for him. This is everything is on the line here, and you're without your head coach. Ohio State looks very good. Their defense is scary. This is the scariest defense Michigan will have played thus far. I think Ohio State edges out Michigan here in a role reversal from last year. So I'm going with the Buckeyes here. And then in our chaser slot, we have yet another rivalry. In state this time, we have Louisville ranked at number 10, taking on Kentucky, who has struggled a little bit, but still a pretty good team. Andy, who do you like in this one?
Yeah, kind of a disappointing year for Kentucky, right? A little bit higher expectations for them. Obviously bringing Devin Leary into the fold from NC State. He's been all right this year. I think 2,200 yards, 20 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. But hasn't been great. Hasn't thrown for 200 plus yards in three games. Their offense is nothing to write home about. They're tied for 173rd in the country with only 350 total yards per game. You look at Louisville, who's a top 30 offense in the country, sitting at 27th, 456 total yards, 33 points a game. I just don't think the Wildcats are going to have enough to slow down Jeff Brom and Louisville. So I will take the Cardinals here, and I don't think it's going to be close.
All right, Tom.
Yeah, Kentucky's lost 5 out of their last 6 and starting 5-0. Devin Leary not the same coming off the injury last year. Just 56% completion percentage. They rely a lot on Ray Davis, who has 17 total touchdowns, just 10 rushing yards away from 1,000. I will say he is a big threat in the backfield with good burst and acceleration. Dane Key, Tavion Robinson, Barryon Brown, all those guys are weapons at Leary's disposal. Defensively, they're not bad. I will say Maxwell Hairston could cause some problems. De'Eric Jackson as well. Now, let's keep in mind, Louisville just has 1 loss on the year. But who is it to? Pittsburgh. They're on a 4-game winning streak since then. They recently beat Miami. Jack Plummer's been very inconsistent at quarterback this season. Jawar Jordan, 1,000-yard back. Isaac Arenda, 585 yards and 8 scores. Again, good complementary backfield. Jamari Thrash is really the only weapon in the passing game. So Louisville relies a lot on running the football and keeping the opposition off the field. But they rely on their defense too. They play in some good low-scoring games. Ashton Jalot, 10 sacks, 3 forced fumbles. Devin Neal with 4 picks. I like Quincy Riley a lot. This is Louisville's only SEC opponent this season. They're favored by 7. My advice is what? When in doubt, you pick the SEC, right? However, I'm not in doubt about this one. Yes, Kentucky has won the last 4 matchups against Louisville. But what have you done for me lately, Kentucky? Nothing. Give me Louisville.
Yeah, that is the first notable thing I had here is that Kentucky does come into this rivalry with the last 4 in a row. That does play into, especially in in-state games like this, where, families are split between the 2 colleges. That does play into the psyche a little bit, but I do agree. I'm going with Louisville here. As far as the players on the field, 2 QBs that have sort of faded out of, relevancy a little bit this season. Like you said, Devin Leary there for Kentucky and Jack Plummer there for Louisville. I mean, Louisville does have the ranking, but I don't know. I mean, I'll say this: he's good enough, and this team is good enough to win this game. But if you're a Louisville fan, you're maybe a little disappointed that had your team been a little more productive, get yourself into that ACC championship game. Maybe the committee's looking at you for a playoff spot, but just too many errors on Plummer's part. The defense for Louisville has been super solid, though. Both teams going to need to rely on their running backs, and they do have good ones. Ray Davis for Kentucky and Jawar Jordan for Louisville to help out the struggling QBs a bit. Both guys getting their fair share of handoffs. It's paid off nicely because both teams both guys have produced right around 1,000 yards already this season on the ground. Kentucky was hot early. They've struggled against good teams. Haven't been able to keep good offenses out of the end zone. They took a loss to Mizzou, let up 38 points. Lost to Tennessee, let up 33 points. Lost to Bama, let up 49 points. And then you go and lose to South Carolina last week. So they're just on the struggle bus right now. I think Louisville is a very solid team here, and I'm as well taking the Cardinals. Moving into our midday slot, we have Washington taking on Washington State in the Apple Cup. Andy, who do you like in this one?
Yeah, so this is a tale of two very different teams, right? So Washington State, like I mentioned earlier, they did get the win over Colorado, and it was never close this past week, but that was their first win since week 4. They're 5-6 now, and they are going to Seattle, to Husky Stadium, to take on number 5 Washington, who is 11-0, looking to finish that undefeated regular season, move on to the Pac-12 title game, and hopefully play themselves into the college football playoffs. So you have Washington State coming into the Apple Cup, hoping to play spoiler, but fellas, I just don't see this one happening. Washington averaging 486 yards of total offense per game and 40 points. Washington State's defense is 200th in the country, giving up 411 total yards of offense. I think the Huskies win this one. I think it might be a little bit closer than people think, but there is just no way in hell I can pick Washington State to win another football game this year after what they have looked like since week 4.
Which is weird because if you looked at this matchup early in the season, you probably would have been like, "Oh, this is going to be a hell of a game."
Exactly.
But yeah, that is a story for another alternate timeline. Tom, who do you like in this one?
Well, look, I mean, the Cougars just snapped the 6-game losing streak against Colorado. Sometimes all it takes is that one win, right? But they've still lost 6 out of their last 7. I will say Cam Ward is the whole team. He's the whole team. He's the only guy. He accounts for 30 touchdowns this year. They have no running game. I mean, their receivers' numbers are inflated. A lot of those are garbage time yards. Let's be real. We can talk about Josh Kelly and Lincoln Victor all we want. Kyle Williams as well. When the majority of their stats come, garbage time. So I'm not looking at 7 touchdowns, 4 touchdowns, 5. I'm not looking at that. I'm looking at what they can do when actually the game is on the line. One guy on defense I really like for the Cougars is Brennan Jackson. 7 sacks, a forced fumble, and 4 recoveries. He's a turnover monster. Look out for him, Michael Penix Jr. Remember, his blind side is the right tackle. He is a lefty quarterback, so that could play a factor here. They have 2 good edge rushers, Ron Stone Jr. on the other side. He also has 3 forced fumbles with 5 sacks. But here's where I have an issue with the Cougars. The Huskies have knocked off 3 straight ranked opponents. Their road has not been easy. They're more battle tested. The Cougars, they've played so many good opponents and they've failed. The Huskies have played 3 straight ranked opponents and they've won. And they're still undefeated. I don't care what the score was. What's their record? 11-0. What's your record? 5-6. They're playing for their lives. They're playing for a bowl game. You're going up against Penix Jr., who has 30 touchdown passes. Roma Dunze and Jalen Polk, who are phenomenal wide receivers. Dylan Johnson, who gets a touchdown every week. The Huskies may not have many sacks, but I trust their offense to get it done. And I trust the Heisman favorite, Michael Penix Jr. Give me Washington.
Yeah, I'm going Washington as well here. The Cougars have just they've struggled on both sides of the ball. Andy, like you said, they're just on an awful losing streak. They do beat a struggling Colorado, but that's not much compensation for the way that the second half of the season has gone for them. It is expected for their defense. I don't think anyone, even in Pac-12 standards, was expecting much from this defense. But we did talk up Cam Ward probably for the first 5 straight weeks, so he definitely expected more. At least to keep them in these games against worse opponents. Washington State's been really relying on him to perform. They just haven't been able to produce over the last month and a half. Yeah, I said it last week when I picked Washington over Oregon State. The team just hangs on. The cat poster that says "Hang in there." That is this Washington team this year. They're playing really good opponents. Not all top 10, but that would just be insane. But all ranked opponents, and they're just scratching and clawing their way to victory every single week. They beat Oregon State, who's probably one of the best secondaries and one of the better defenses that they played, 22-20. They find a way to get it done. I don't think they're going to have much trouble here against a much worse opponent and a much worse defense. You got one of the top 3 wide receivers in the nation in Odunze. This Washington secondary can't stop anyone. They're not going to stop him at all. So I think Washington tears up the Cougs in this one, unfortunately for Wazoo fans. And they roll maybe into the top 4. We'll see with that Jordan Travis injury news. And then in the chaser slot here, we have Alabama taking on Auburn, Alabama ranked Auburn, coming off a very bad loss. Andy, do we see another kick six moment here, upset of a top Alabama team, or is Alabama going to roll here?
Yeah, absolutely not. Alabama has their last 3 games, 66, 49, and 42 points. I talked about it earlier. They've figured something out on offense. I will say they put up 66 points on Chattanooga, so not super impressive, but you get it. I just, like I said, Auburn gave up 31 points to New Mexico State last week. They're 6-5 on the year. You have Peyton Thorne at quarterback, who will just never impress me. Fuck, man. Like, they don't have a chance. I know it's a home game and it's a rivalry, the Iron Bowl, but I mean, just look at, like, 48-18 at LSU, who Alabama beat LSU. They gave Georgia a game, surprisingly. Texas A&M beat them by 17 points. Like, what are we talking about here? Alabama rolls.
All right, I had to throw it in there. The Iron Bowl can produce some magic sometimes. Tom, who do you like?
Quarterback right now with
So confused. This loss for Auburn came 1 week after destroying the Hogs, 48-10. So this makes no sense at all. Their tight end is their best receiving weapon. Rivaldo Fairweather juggernaut. 6 touchdowns on the season. Also, their receiver's name is Jay Fair. I guess they like guys with the name Fair. They don't have a defense. They have guys with numbers, but collectively, they're not good. They give up so many yards. Bama has guys. Terrion Arnold is an outstanding young corner. I like him a lot. Caleb Downs has really improved his game. Dallas Turner and Chris Braswell, both stepping up in place of Will Anderson Jr. this season. Again, a guy who wouldn't be replaced by one man. Those 2 guys have done a good job filling in the holes left there. Their receivers aren't as good as they were in the past, but I do like the development of Jalen Milroe this season. He's played much better in the second half. He's a threat through the air and on the ground. Alabama.
Yeah, sorry I had to throw this one on here. I agree. It is probably going to be an absolute whooping here. Things can happen in the Iron Bowl. Like I said, we all saw the kick six, one of the most memorable plays in college football history. But, I mean, you can't just lose. I know New Mexico State is good this year, and we're giving them some props there, but you cannot lose to New Mexico State 31-10 if you're an Auburn team. That is just inexcusable there. So, I mean, that's just a complete kick in the gut coming into a game against your biggest rival. I don't know how you even recover if you're Auburn coming into this game, because that was just an embarrassing loss. Alabama, on the other end, has been absolutely rolling since their loss earlier in the season. Like you guys said, Milroe, he's steadied himself. This is that Nick Saban magic. You bench the guy, and 75% of the other teams in college football, the guy, loses his shit, starts partying, all this stuff. Absolute Nick Saban moment. Milroe is locked in. Alabama locked in. They look really good right now. The one notable stat line here that I will throw in, despite the fact that I think they are going to whoop Auburn, Milroe has been running the ball almost as much as the lead rusher, Jason McClellan. It's about 150 rushes to 103, I think, for Milroe. So not really spreading the ball on the ground there. But as far as receivers go, Milroe not known for his arm, but they do have 8 players with 10-plus receptions. So he is spreading the ball quite nicely through the air. And that's a lot of coverage that you need to make if you're Auburn. And if you can't cover New Mexico State, I don't know how you're going to cover this Alabama team. So I'm going with the Crimson Tide as well here. Moving into 7:30 slot, we have the game, the QBs we talked about earlier in the show, the unfortunate injuries. It is Florida versus Florida State. Both teams lose their starting quarterbacks coming into one of the biggest rivalries in college football. Andy, FSU number 4, they need to hang on here. Did they get it done?
I do think they win this game, guys, but I think it's going to be close. This is one where, obviously it's similar to the Washington State game, where you have an 11-0 Florida State coming in, playing against a 5-6 Florida team that's playing, 1, to play spoiler, and 2, to kind of salvage their season and make it to a bowl game. Oh my God, what a ball from Jalen Hurts to Devonta Smith. Sorry.
That's Alabama magic.
Yeah, that is that Bama magic that we were just talking about. But I actually think Florida State and Graham Mertz have a chance to win this game, as crazy as that is. Anytime you have a backup coming in for when you're a really good team like this, I feel like, depending on his relationship with the rest of the team, how often he's actually gotten in to play, it can be a little bit, there can be some growing pains there. There can be some hesitancy from the coaching staff to really let this guy, let it loose and really play, let it all out there and play. So I'm a little nervous about that. But, at Missouri last week, Florida gave them all they could handle, coming out with a 33-31 loss. I think we see another very close game here. This game is in the Swamp, Florida at home. They've lost 4 games in a row, but I'm giving them a chance to beat Florida State this week. I think Florida State comes out with a close victory over the Gators.
All right, Tom, what's going to happen in the swamp here?
It's a real shame. Jordan Travis gone. Graham Mertz gone. Broken collarbone. Gators need a win in order to get a bowl game. They're desperate. They've lost 4 in a row. The Knowles backup quarterback, Tate Rodmaker, more experienced than most backup quarterbacks. He has 2 touchdown passes on the season. The Knowles are battle tested this year, like Washington. They have close calls against Boston College, Clemson, and Miami, Florida. They still have Trey Benson. They still have Keon Coleman and Johnny Wilson, who the offense will run through. Jaheim Bell, solid tight end. Rodmaker will have a full week of practice with these guys. I am not concerned about Florida State just yet. Defensively, Kalen DeLoach is a stud. Jared Verse is still there. Josh Farmer. What I am concerned about is Max Brown. He's thrown 5 pass attempts all season. They're going to be heavily leaning on Montrell Johnson Jr. and Trevor Etienne, who, by the way, have the exact same amount of rushing yards. That's nearly impossible to get through 12 weeks. Ricky Pearsall and Eugene Wilson III are solid receivers, but can Max Brown get them the ball? That's what I don't know. See, my matchup to watch in this game is Keon Coleman against Jason Marshall for the Gators. I think Keon Coleman is going to have a good game, and I think for Florida, if they have any chance of winning, Princely Umanmielen has to get crazy pressure on Rodemaker. Yeah, it is close. It is close. I'm more worried about the spread than the money line straight out. So Florida State will win the game.
All right, yeah. I mean, this game, I wouldn't say it was going to be super exciting going into it had there been no injuries, because Florida has struggled a little bit, but the game itself has just been turned on its head, completely upside down, with both QBs suffering season-ending injuries and college career-ending there for Jordan Travis. Good coverage on the game by both you guys. I'll just add a few quick ones. Tate Rodmaker, obviously starting for the Knowles, Max Brown for the Gators. The interesting thing about these two guys getting their starts here, again, in one of the biggest rivalry games in the nation. Good luck, boys, just throwing them out there.
By fire.
Yeah, exactly. FSU loses their dual threat with Jordan Travis in replacement for a Rodemaker, who is more of a pocket passer. And from what I've been reading, I don't know much about Max Brown, but apparently it has been the exact opposite for Florida, where you have Mertz, who is more of a pocket passer, and Max Brown comes in, and I guess he's nifty on his feet. So we'll see how these defenses adjust here, because I'm sure they've been planning for this game. These teams know each other, they hate each other, and all of a sudden you're planning for completely different quarterbacks coming into the game. The one extra piece that I'll mention, Trevor Etienne, FSU's D-line really needs to stuff him. Because again, without Mertz, you're now bringing in a rushing QB. They're going to have that option. It's going to confuse the defense a little bit, at least at the start of the game here, as they adjust. So they need to keep that run game to a minimum here for Florida. And then FSU's O-line, they let Rodemaker get sacked twice last week in not even a full game. So they really need to be careful about what happens next week. Obviously, they played a pretty shitty opponent. Florida's D-line is going to be a little bit better, so you don't want to see Rodemaker getting sacked, 3, 4, 5 times in this game, because this is in Florida. It's in the swamp. You don't want that electric energy to start pumping up at the crowd if they're knocking off sack after sack against a QB who doesn't have much experience. I do think it makes the game closer, obviously without the starting quarterbacks, but I still think Florida State is a better all-arounder here, and they can pull this one off, so I'm going with the Knowles as well. But I do think, I'll say this now, I think they're going to fall out of the top 4 here by the time we get to playoff contention, unfortunately. And then the last game here, we have another in-state rivalry. It is the Carolinas. Back in the Carolinas is NC State taking on number 20 North Carolina. Neither team really wants to be this year, but North Carolina is still at least ranked for now. But this is a tough matchup here against the Wolfpack. Andy, who do you like in this one?
Hand up, I had no idea that NC State was 8-3 until I started looking at this game. You kind of compare the schedules here. Obviously they both play in the same conference, so there's going to be similar opponents. This is an NC State team that beat Clemson 24-17. Obviously, we saw last week the Tar Heels falling to the Tigers. So there's a common opponent there for you. But are they going to have enough? North Carolina, I have decided that I am done betting on them, whether it is totals, whether it's spread, whatever. They are on my banned list. Drake May or not. they fucking suck. Like, I don't think they are that good. I know they're 8-3. Obviously not world beaters, but they are ranked number 20. Their offense is great, right? 526 yards a game, 311 through the air, 203 on the ground, complimentary football, 38 points a game. But their defense, guys, is giving up 414 yards total, 26 points a game. When you look at it, that's not like awful, but absolutely atrocious. It's been a theme of Mac Brown's Tar Heel teams his entire tenure. They can't stop anybody on defense. Brennan Armstrong back for the Wolfpack, like Tom mentioned earlier in the show. Give me the Wolfpack. They get the win at home in this rivalry and spoil. Well, I guess it's not even what are you playing for at this point? The fucking Quick Lane Bowl. Give me the Wolfpack in a somewhat of an upset.
All right, how dare you besmirch the name of that bowl game? But no, Tom, who do you like in this one?
UNC favored by 3. Both teams 8-3. UNC has lost 3 out of their last 5 games. To piggyback off of Andy's point, Mac Brown just announced he will be back for 2024. But you know who won't be back for 2024? Drake May. He is playing at a whole nother level this season. 22 touchdown passes, 8 rushing for 30 total, over 3,300 passing yards. O'Marion Hampton is a really solid runner, over 1,400 yards and 15 scores. I mean, Tez Walker finally being granted eligibility has carved out and salvaged himself a nice season. I like J.J. Jones and Bryson Nesbitt over the middle of the field. Yeah, the Tar Heels have some names on defense, but they're not good at all. I think one guy that's pretty decent is Cedric Gray. I think he could cause some problems for Brendan Armstrong. Just his 3rd game back from injury. But let's keep this in mind. The Wolfpack have won 4 straight. UNC's lost 3 out of their last 5. The Wolfpack had ripped off 4 in a row. And Armstrong is a threat to run. I mean, they recently held Miami and Wake Forest to 6 points each. The Wolfpack did. So I think that needs to be said. Kevin Concepcion with 8 touchdown receptions. Peyton Wilson, phenomenal linebacker. 123 tackles, 5 sacks, 2 picks. He'll be an NFL guy. Davin Van and Red Hibbler, they might cause Hampton some problems in the trenches. There was a stat brought up earlier in the show. I forget what team it was, Brian. I think you said had 14 interceptions as a team this year. I don't remember. Yeah, so NC State has 15 as a defense. That's why I went thumbs down earlier in the show. NC State has won the last 2 matchups, but man, Drake May is good. How can you bet against him? Give me North Carolina State to win.
Man, I thought this was going to be a toss-up one here to end the show, but I as well am going with the Wolfpack here. Listen, Drake May has been maybe not incredible, but just short of it. 3,300 yards, 22 touchdowns. The losses are probably the one thing keeping him out of Heisman contention. I don't think he would win it, but maybe he get to visit at least, be one of the finalists in New York City. Andy, like you said earlier, no Leary here for NC State. He was stolen by Kentucky, and instead you get Brendan Armstrong, whose arm has only gotten him 8 touchdowns and 6 interceptions. Certainly not a one-to-one replacement there. You want something better, but he is at least better taking off on his speed. He has 6 rushing touchdowns to go along with that. And NC State, I think, Andy, you mentioned this one as well. They beat the Clemson team that just took down UNC. So common opponent, both recent games. I think that game itself, that common opponent, plays into how both teams look on paper. NC State, and this is like typical of an NC State team. They're like that 3 or 4 loss team. They knock off some good wins, but they look like a complete team. Whereas UNC, like you said, that Mac Brown defense just doesn't exist. You could ship them off to Washington State, replace them, and it would look like the same defense. It's both just absolutely awful there on both teams.
It's a Spider-Man meme.
It is. Just pointing at each other as they give up points in the background. But yeah, UNC, just I can't trust them. They lost to Georgia Tech. They lost to Virginia, 2 very bad teams. Georgia Tech's a little better than Virginia. I'll give them that. But my player to watch here, at least on offense, Delbert Mims, incredible name. He has only 78 rushes, but 7 touchdowns. So they put him in there to finish the job, and he gets it done. 1 touchdown almost every 10 touches. That is an incredible production ratio right there for Mr. Mims. And then some more great names. I was loving this team's roster, going through it, pulling these guys. Tommy brought up some of these guys. NC State, as a defense, has 31 total sacks. They're led by Peyton Wilson, linebacker. He's got 5. Davin Van with 5.5. And then my favorite of the bunch, Red Hibbler, also 5.5 sacks. So yeah, that O-line, that D-line for UNC, not very good. I think all 3 of those guys are just going to get through that O-line and cream Mr. Drake May there and cause some problems, probably cause a few fumbles. So I'm going with the Wolfpack as well, just the better team, in my opinion. That is going to wrap up our Thanksgiving show, Week 13. Thank you, everyone, for joining us yet again. Enjoy your dinners if you're watching this before Thursday. Eat until you go into a food coma. Wake up. I think we got some Friday night games, actually, and then Saturday as well, obviously.
Egg bowl on Thursday.
Oh, there you go. You get the egg bowl during. That's your pre-food coma action right there. But yeah, enjoy all the action again. Thank you for joining us. Hit the like and subscribe button if you haven't already, because you made it this far. And hit it again for Mr. Andy Hopper's shows down in the description as well. And to my right, Mr. Tom Scavetta's shows as well down in the description. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see everyone back next week.